So hi, here we're going to do simple collision detection. So I've made an enemy, I've added a sprite to it, I've tinted the sprite here, which you can do because mine was red like the other one. I couldn't bother to get any other sprites. And then I've added an empty enemy script. So here we are. So at the moment I can shoot, but it's not dying. So here's what we need to do. We need to go to the enemy and we need to add, I'm going to use 2D, but it's exactly the same as 3D. In code, just don't write the 2D. I'm going to give it a rigid bodied 2D. Now, if I leave that as it is, this is going to be affected by like physics now, and the enemy will drop out of the air. It'll go through me because I haven't got any collision on me, and neither's this. This means be affected by physics, okay? But I'm going to turn it kinematic, and kinematic means don't be affected by stuff and be able to be moved, right? So I'm going to make it a rigid bodied 2D. Now you only actually have to put that on one of them, but I tend to put it on all of mine because I get a bit, the collision detection can be quite fiddly. I'm going to make the bullet have a kinematic rigid body as well. Remember to do it down here, not in some instance in the game. So both of them have got rigid bodied 2Ds. They're both kinematics. They're not using the default physics. They're just using, whatever. But the thing is, they haven't got a collision box, like, well, how do we know when they've been hit? So I'm going to put a polygon collider in. Okay, which is a sort of shaped collider, 2D one, which it will normally do a really good job of drawing around it. But if it's not, you can do edit and move points and delete points. But I think it does a pretty good job normally, and it's done a great job there. Okay, now on the bullet, I'm going to add a capsule commander. I could do a polygon collider, but they're just slower. And seeing as I made it out of a capsule, it seems sensible to add a capsule collider in. I'm just going to drag the bullet in, focus on it with F, and just edit have a look. Yeah, it looks pretty close to it. It's good enough. Okay, so then I'm going to delete that because it's here. So I've got my capsule collider, and I'm going to make it a trigger. I'm going to make them triggers. I'm going to make this one a trigger and the enemy a trigger. Now, what that means is they're not going to hit each other as such. They're just going to overlap. And when they overlap, we can detect it. So very quickly on each one, I've got a rigid body that's kinematic. And I've got a polygon collider or a capsule collider that are triggers. Okay. Now, press play and look what's going to happen now. Nothing, because we haven't done any code to do anything. So here's what we need to do. So I'm going to do it in the enemy, okay, because I've got the enemy script here. So we're going to do on trigger, enter 2D. And then let's just destroy, we're going to destroy the collision, which is .gameObject, which is the object that touched us. And then we're going to destroy ourselves, which is just GameObject. Okay. Now we can't put destroy bullet in there and do some sort of drag and drop because that would destroy all the bullets. We want the one that hits, that's under collision. Okay, so we're going to minimize that now. We'll do a quick recompile and run. And now, boom, they're both dead. Fantastic. There's a problem though. Okay, if two enemies, don't know what's happened. I paused it. Let's stop. What did I do there? Why did mine disappear? Oh, I found zoomed in loads from when I was looking at the bullet. Yeah, there we go. I was so confused and I was like, where is everything? No, right. So the problem is, let's put two enemies on top of each other or touching each other. And theoretically, let's hope they disappear. Yes, they're gone. And that's because they're dying when they hit anything right now. But they should only be dying when they hit a bullet. So I'm going to go down here, go to tag, and add a tag, and I'm going to call it bullet. Now that doesn't actually add the tag bullet to it. That's just making a new tag. Now I have to go back to the bullet and actually assign the tag bullet. All right. I should probably assign the tag player to this. There's a built-in one called player. I should probably make one called enemy or enemies and just tag them. So I'll add a new one called enemy, and then on the enemy, which I will turn into a prefab in a bit, I'm going to add enemy. There we go. So now enemies are enemies, players are players, and bullets are bullets. It's an easy way to discern what something is by its tag. So here, let's check if it's a bullet. So if collision dot GameObject dot tag is equal to bullet, then we're on the money, people. Then we destroy its thing, and there we go. Yeah, we destroy it, and so on and so forth. And that was really annoying. Why do I keep doing that? They're compiling, so there we go. And now this will work perfectly only when the bullet does it. Oh, I could show you the enemies being next to each other if you want. and they will not kill each other now. He says. There you go. Now I've got 2. Bang, bang. We've got his WASD. There we go. And I can fly forward. So, brilliant. But then obviously I'm thinking, well, it'd be good if the enemies had health, wouldn't it? Obviously it would. So what we will do here is we would go into enemy. And we would do a serializable private field called, I'll do a float. No, I'll do an integer. No, I'll do a float called enemy health, and we'll set it to 100. Okay, and then we're going to do, then we'll do enemy health minus equals 20. And then now I could just check it here in the update and then kill it there. There, because that's the only place I'm damaging it. But in case I want to do a weapon that sort of like damages the health of every object, right? So now I'm going to do an update here. If enemy, it actually had it in. If enemy health is less than equal to 0, and then I should do a function called die, because we obviously want to do more than just destroy ourselves. We obviously want to make an explosion noise or make some parts. But that's what it'll do. So we're constantly looking for death, and this will just take 20 off. Brilliant. This is fine. However, this isn't really great code. In a second, I'll explain why, but it will work perfectly for this instance. There you go. Okay, 5 hits or whatever it was instead. And the problem is, I've hard-coded 20 there. What I mean by that is I've typed in 20, so bullets take 20. And yes, I could have some sort of bullet thing up here. Okay, but this isn't really great, because really what I want is a damage. I might even have a damage type. Maybe this type of enemy is, is more damaged by electricity, whatever, or something like that. So I really need to get access to the bullet in some way and the damage amount used. So what I would do is go to the bullet, add a component, and call it damage controller. New script, by the way, called damage controller. Because I called the other one, whatever I called it, movement controller. So I'm going to call this one damage controller. And in it, now I could put like damage type as well. So I'm going to put a serializable field, but again, we won't actually be making any private floats, which I will make a, actually I don't need to change the damage. Yes, I do. So I'll make it a thing. We'll call it damage amount. Okay. Just don't forget, it's also good damage over time or whatever. And I'm going to set it to 25F, whatever, right? Then because we're going to want to change that in a bit, I will instantly turn it into, actually I should make that lowercase like I'm supposed to, and instantly turn that into a property, which will be called damage amount, right? To save. So now I'm going to put that on anything that damages. In this case, the bullet. And it's got 25. So this bullet's 25, right? But again, the player would probably alter that based on some sort of player level. Okay, so, so in the player controller here, see, I'd probably have some sort of like level. In fact, I might do that. So I can set myself to level 1. In fact, let's do that. Let's do a serializable private int. Why does it do that on a paste? And we'll call it upgrade level. We'll call it weapon level. And we'll set to 0, obviously start at 0. And then when we shoot, we're going to do some sort of multiplying it by, not in actual bullet speed. I'll put plus weapon level so it goes slightly faster when times it by that. And that, I'll do that because of Bobmas. Yeah, so it will slightly go faster when we go up the levels. But it's really going to be in this bit here where we get the components. So we got that does the movement of the bullet. So now we want a damage controller. DC equals, and let's get the damage controller. And it's a good idea to talk here about some actual proper coding. Because I did not do proper coding before, because I should never have done this. I should do if MC not equal to null, because there is a possibility that we don't find a movement controller and we don't want the program to crash. So again, if, no, not here, here, if DC not equals, I think DC dot, what do I call it? Bullet damage or damage amount. And then we're going to set it to we'll set it to 20 plus. I don't want to do anything clever. I should probably do some sort of switch where different levels do different. But I'm going to do weapon level and then times it by. So every level gives you 5 points. We'll do 3. Okay, so and then we can go up to 5. So that means you can get. We'll do times 5. Screw it. Let's just so you can go between 20 and 40. They're going to allow up to weapon level 5, right? Now, obviously, at this point, I can't change the weapon level. So just to be really easy, I'm going. Yeah, I'll be able to change it in the code. I'll be able to change it in the editor. So now I'm getting the damage controller, and I'm setting this. But of course, this isn't again. I would need to get the damage controller. So copy that. Okay. And I go to the enemy, and when the enemy gets hit by the bullet, it's going to need to access the damage controller. So we need to. In fact, I should have just taken both those things, not that. Player controller. Actually, yeah, I don't read. But anyway, so now damage controller equals collision dot game objects dot get component damage controller. Now then we would then do enemy health minus equals damage amount. All right, now that's a bit confusing, I'll grant you. So there we go. Okay, so let's just go over what we've done. We've made a damage controller script that you can put on anything that damages something else with a damage amount. Obviously, you could add damage type, damage over time, whatever, some special stuff in there. A tag to say this has got a special ability or whatever. You know, does it add this ability or whatever? Then when the player shoots the bullet, it's going to set the damage based on some weapon level, which is an integer. So I'm going to set the damage amount to 20 plus weapon level times 5. So I'm going to go 0 to 5, at 1 or whatever, 1 to 5. So weapon level was 0, but I'll do 0 to 4, sorry. So that essentially, like in the game, maybe 1 to 5, but we'll do 0 to 4. So it can actually get up to 20. But I could type 100 in the game, so we can just see it insta-kill enemies as opposed to 5 hit them. And then in the enemy, when I get hit by a bullet or anything, but in the case it is a bullet, but I would check the damage controller to see on the bullet to see how much it damages and then take it off. Very simple as that. Right, so I've created 3 versions of the enemy. Okay, and yeah, so let's see it in action. So I shoot the first one as normal, which I assume is enemy 2. So let's have a look at their health. There we go. So that's going to take 5 hits. Yeah. Then I go to player. Let's set the weapon level to 8. That's quite a big one. We go to enemy, which I know enemy 0 is probably the middle one because that's the first one I put in. And so now it's weapon level 8. So let's do the math. So it should be 20 plus 5 times 8. So it should do 60 damage. And it does. There you go. Boom, boom. And of course, if we were to set. Now this, I'm going to try and see if I can get this, but my computer is quite quick. I'm going to try and see if I can give you a problem. Let's set weapon speed to 80,000. Okay, that might crash. 8,000. Let me fire it here. Yeah, there we go. The bullet is moving too quick, even 800. Actually, let's try 800. Yeah, too much. Let's try 80, see if we can see the bullet. Right, now, that looks like it might hit. Oh, that one missed. There you go. It didn't kill it. And that's because, but I bet if I do a few, it will. Yeah, basically, you can see where the bullet is skipping the player. Just another thing also, the bullet is going on forever. Normally, I would do some sort of either timer or do a collision. Actually, I could just add that very quickly. I could do an object. I create an empty object. I drag it off the screen like to here. I'm just going to add, I'll put it 0x because it bugs me. And I'll put that to 6 and 0 just out of, and then I'm going to call it like death wall. There are other ways. I could do a timer, but a timer could go even further. Like if it leaves the screen, I want it to die immediately because it might actually kill sort of there. I would add a box 2D collider. So I'll put this up a bit, it's just there. And then I would edit it and I'd make this nice and wide and nice and tall. Like this. Whee. And then add rigid body 2D, even though I probably don't need it, but I add it to everything, make it kinematic, make sure this is a trigger, and then we tag this like death. Death. I normally use that. I mean, obviously you could pick your own less impressive or weird one. Right, and then on the bullet, then I'll make a script like kill on contact with death. So I'll make like death contacts destroy or something like that. Okay, so it's a script that you can add to any object. I don't want to see online. You'll see a lot of people putting everything in the same script. Like player controller does everything. Really, I probably wouldn't even have shooting and movement day in the same class. Maybe that, but I would limit it to probably that. So def script is going to be, and I'll put the tag in there so you can kill on any contact. It doesn't have to be tagged death. I'll put like a serializable field with string death tag. But we're going to put death, but obviously then you can make as a default, and then you do on trigger enter 2D if collision dot tag is equal to death tag, then destroy game object. Okay, and then obviously fix that. So now this is the ability to have something kill something by tag. We're going to default it to death, but you could obviously change it. So I've called it death contact destroy, which is maybe not the best name. But anyway, so now I've got a script that, you know, I can put on the bullet and it will die when it hits things. So I go to bullet, drag on that. It's defaulting to the, I can't see it. Where's it gone? Did it add it? No, I don't think it did. I think I just added damage controller again. No, I put the enemy script on there. That was a mistake. Death contact. There we go. And then the tag is death, which is what I've tagged mine in. Just double checking. Right. So now my bullets will hit that and die. I'll just be honest with you. You have to be a bit careful because, yeah, you can see they're dying. Now you might have a thing when they die, they make a noise. Yeah. So you might not. You might have to do something around that about how it dies and something like that or whatever, but I don't know. So just be careful of that, because if you're having a sound effect, it's like when it dies, it'll do that off the screen, and so you do need a way to do that differently. And so maybe in this case, this way would not be better, to have this separate script that does it, but I'm not going to do that. Then you would probably just do it in the bullet controller. Wherever you're about to make the sound on death, don't do it if you collide with like instant death or something like that, or you tag it. Maybe you could tag something, don't play sound or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. There's ways around that, obviously. There you go. That's this video.